This podcast is brought to you by The Shift.
It's story time.
Hello and welcome back to the Storytime Podcast. My name is Claire. I go by Clisare on the internet, and this is the podcast where every week a guest comes on and tells me their stories. And this week I have with me John. Hello, John.
Hey, good afternoon. How are you?
I'm good. Would you like to introduce yourself and tell everyone where to find you on the internet?
Sure. I'm John Verrico of John Verrico, Share Your Fire. I'm a motivational speaker and leadership and communication coach. And my website is www.johnverrico.com, spelt just like that. And I also am on pretty much all the social media channels except TikTok. I'm not quite mastered that yet, but you can find me just under my name. Or Jay Verrico on Twitter.
So in the description on YouTube and in the show notes on the audio platforms, I'll have all your links.
Perfect. Or
so
scary.
You have a story, or rather a kind of couple of related stories for us today.
Sure, absolutely. So I before I became this double X Adonis that I am today, I actually was a very skinny, scrawny, small child. When I was in school, I was one of the smallest kids, and I was only 5'3", weighed 110 pounds when I graduated high school at the age of 18. So I was picked on a lot by bullies, and I always was trying to fit in and to be accepted. Wanted to draw attention to myself, but every time I did, the bullies found me. And so I didn't know what to do with myself. I tried a bunch of different things. I was a lousy athlete. I joined the wrestling team because I wasn't tall enough for basketball or anything like that. And on the wrestling team, because I was so small, they actually gave me a nickname called the Mighty Mosquito. Because I was small, I sucked, and I mostly got swatted. So that whole thing didn't quite work out the way I wanted. The attention I got wasn't the way I wanted. And to add to all of my crazy childhood angst, my parents were going through a divorce. And so, when parents are doing that, they have this kind of a competition with their children about who's going to be the favorite parent. Now, my family is from New York, and my mother was a city girl and was not really fond of pets and animals. And the only animals we ever saw as kids growing up in Brooklyn, New York, were pigeons and squirrels and occasional seagulls. My father had grown up also in New York, but he'd spent a lot of time in the country part of New York State. And he was a hunter and was an animal lover and all that stuff. So Dad started to introduce us to wildlife. And interesting enough, he showed up at our house. This is after parents were divorced. And Dad, in order to try to become the favorite parent, brought us a pair of raccoon cubs that
Oh my God.
had been orphaned. Their mother had been hit by a car, and these two little cubs were on the side of the road, and Dad scooped them up, brought them over. We built a pen together, and he taught us to help, how to help to raise them so they can work, they can function on their own. But he said,
are raccoons considered like vermin, or are they considered what are like, so,
they're not vermin.
No.
They're kind of cool. They can be annoying pests because they like to get into people's garbage and things like that.
Yeah.
So they're perfectly fine out in the wild, but you don't want to have human interaction with them because they can cause damage. They're
so they're wild animals. Yeah, that makes sense.
They are definitely wild animals.
Definitely wild.
But they're also extremely playful, but
Okay.
they can be destructive in their play. So what the big thing is that you don't want them to be imprinted by people. You don't want them to trust people too much because people are going to hurt them. That's how the mother got hit by a car, right? Because she wasn't afraid to be out on the road. And so Dad was really pretty adamant about making sure that we didn't pet them and cuddle them and try to turn them into pets. He said, you'll feed them, but not hand feed them. Don't give them people treats, give them vegetables and like cat food and things like that. so that they can grow. And we built a good sized pen for them in the backyard. And ultimately, the idea was, we would open the pen and let them go in and out as they felt comfortable. And then ultimately they would move on, which is exactly what happened. But, being kids, we didn't always follow all of Dad's rules. Dad said, don't give them people food. Well, I'll tell you one thing. We learned probably one of life's most important lessons from these raccoons. And that is nature's true intended way to eat the Oreo cookie.
Okay.
Because so we were trying different things out, and the raccoon's natural tendency was to open the Oreo cookie, lick the cream out of the inside, and then eat the cookie.
No way.
So we know now the whole dunking. Some people dunk their cookies in milk. Some people eat the cookie whole. Other people open the cookie and lick the cream out first. And that is nature's intended way to eat the Oreo cookie. We learned that. Well, anyway, the whole adventure with the raccoons went quite well, actually, in the long run. The raccoons ultimately moved up into the tree in the backyard. This is, by the way, we had moved from Brooklyn to New Jersey at this point, so there was wildlife around. And so, before we would go to school in the morning, we would go outside with our Oreo cookie or a marshmallow and hold it up, and the raccoons would come down and take it and go back up. But ultimately, they moved on. So Dad then encouraged us about how to capture safely without injuring other animals. So we had rabbits and chipmunks and squirrels and turtles, and my brother was great about catching snakes, which my mother really didn't like.
I would hate that too, in fairness.
We had all kinds of birds and lizards and toads and frogs and you name it. We kept finding new animals, and we would build pens and cages for them. We'd keep them for a few days. If they ate well in captivity, we might keep them as long as a week and then let them go again and just capture something new. And we would charge kids in the neighborhood like $0.25 to come and see our zoo. And it was
entrepreneurs.
We were, and we just wanted to make our way in life. But we found ourselves suddenly becoming somewhat popular because we had all these animals. And then people would start bringing us animals, like these birds fell out of their nest.
Oh, no way.
This hawk has a broken wing. All kinds of things. One of the most memorable was there was a little 4-year-old down the street from us, about 2 houses down, and he came walking up the street carrying in his cupped hands a baby rabbit, which was maybe no bigger than my thumb. It was so young. It was what we would call a pinky, hadn't even gotten fur yet.
Oh, wow.
And what happened was there was a rabbit had made a nest in the yard, and their father had run over that nest with a lawnmower without knowing that it was there. Didn't hit the baby rabbit or any of the babies with a blade, but caught this one with the wheel of the lawnmower. So this little boy brings it over. Matthew brings down this little baby rabbit, and he says, "Can you fix my rabbit?"
Oh, that's so cute.
And so we're looking at this thing, and it's bleeding through the nose and the ears, and like, okay, it's definitely a goner, unfortunately. And so we're like, okay, we'll take care of him. We'll see what we can do. And I immediately set my brother out to go out and start catching young baby rabbits and see what we can do, because we knew this one wasn't going to make it. And I had basically recovered from a sprained ankle, and the doctors had given me Darvon, which was a painkiller. And so I mixed up a little solution of Darvon and gave it to this baby rabbit, and put it to sleep gently. And that was the end.
That was very smart of you. What age were you at this point?
I think I was about 14 at this point.
Wow.
Yeah. So I think I was still a freshman. No, I think I might have been a sophomore in high school. So yeah. And so,
sorry, remind me what sophomore is again?
So
the second year of high school?
10th grade, second year of high school.
Thank you.
And so the interesting thing of all of this was we were thinking, man, someday we're going to become veterinarians because we're getting into this. We are, we're splinting birds' wings and all this kind of stuff. I had no idea what we were doing. but anyway, we ultimately caught a baby rabbit, and it lasted a couple of days and it died. So we caught another baby rabbit, and it lasted a couple of days and it died. And we couldn't figure out what was going on, but ultimately we got one that lasted not 1 week, but 2 weeks and started to grow. And we're like, okay, this one is going to make it. So we built a nice cage for it, and we put it in the cage, and we brought it down the street over to Matthew and said, look at how big your rabbit has grown. He survived. And so everybody in the neighborhood thought we were some kind of miracle workers for saving the baby, the original baby rabbit. We never let on that it wasn't the same rabbit. We just told people, yeah, sure, we took care of that, no problem. We wanted to be veterinarians. We really thought that was going to be it. Well, many, many, many years later, of course, all of this was pre-social media. And now, it's probably decades later, and we're on social media, and the little boy who lived down the street had contacted us on social media and said, hey, I remember you guys, and all that stuff. And, I kept that rabbit for so long and all this other stuff. And we said, yeah, that wasn't the same rabbit.
You broke the illusion.
I did. We broke the illusion. And so he told his dad, and then his father reaches out on social media. He goes, are you kidding me? All these years we thought you were these magical miracle workers. But yeah, it was a wonderful time of life. But I found that people started to learn to accept us because we had something special to offer. And that was really the first time in my life, especially in the high school era, when I started to feel accepted by people. And it made me take more chances and kind of come out of my shell a little bit. And ultimately, things went in a whole different direction, and I found myself. This is now the disco era, as we're graduating from high school, and I saw all these people getting out there and disco dancing, and heck, they were getting all the girls. I'm like, wait a minute now, I got to try this. And I taught myself how to disco dance by watching American Bandstand and Soul Train and all these shows on TV. And I ultimately became a disco dance instructor.
Wow.
Just a complete shift from from thinking I was going to be a veterinarian. Now I'm out being a disco dance instructor. And I realized, and the fun part of all of that was there was a realization that was starting to form for me. I didn't really want the popularity that I thought I did. People started coming to me because they had something to offer them. But I realized it wasn't the popularity for myself. It was my ability to be able to help someone. I was helping those animals. I was helping people, with their sick animals when I was a kid. I was helping these people now who the disco era was all about egos, and all everybody wanted to do was stand out in the crowd. And I was helping them do that by teaching them cool dance moves. And I actually would get people to do competition disco. So I was teaching competitors. I wasn't competing much myself, but I was teaching others how to be competitive. And they were winning. And I realized that my pleasure, my thrill, my reward was watching them succeed.
Yeah.
It took a long time to figure that out. But ultimately, that's kind of how my whole career migrated and evolved until that point now in my life. And I won't say how old I am because that's just ridiculous. But I'm at a point in my life now where I focus on helping others to achieve and to find their goals and to be daring, like to reach out and pick up that injured animal or whatever it is that we do. I had a stint long after high school, and I actually had joined the Navy, I was in the Navy for 25 years, and there's
Wow.
whole zillion other stories about that part of my life. But after I got out of the Navy, I was working for a state government agency in Maryland. One of the things that we did was there was a program, and this kind of brings things full circle, that rehabilitated birds of prey.
Wow.
And I was a public affairs person, so my job was to talk to reporters about all the cool things going on about our parks and our natural resources and our forests. And there was this program with these birds of prey, and I said, well, tell me more about how this works. And they said, well, we take these injured birds, and those that can be rehabilitated to be re-released get re-released, but those that have permanent type injuries we use in education programs. So we take them around to schools and all that stuff. And so I said, I actually have some experience in that because I used to handle critters when I was a kid. And I actually raised a hawk as part of our little zoo for a while. So I said, I would love to try this. And so next thing you know, I'm out there, wearing a glove and handling hawks and owls and kestrels and ospreys and eagles. And it was probably another one of the most rewarding times of my life. And I was out at one of these events, public event, and I had I think I had a hawk, I had an owl. Quick side note, there was a great horned owl, and they're phenomenal birds. I don't know if you've ever seen one in person, but they're quite a large bird, and they can eat some pretty significant size prey. They'll eat rabbits and stuff, the size of a large cat. And they're really perfect for what they do because they help control the rodent population and all that other great stuff. But here's this woman who comes up to our area and was looking at the critters, and she looks at this owl and starts cursing at it. Like, what is wrong with you? She goes, you horrible, evil thing. I'm like, whoa, what's wrong? They're wonderful creatures. They help keep the rats and mouse populations down and all. Oh, no, they're terrible. They're evil. I said, why? She goes, I used to have 2 miniature Dachshunds.
No.
Oh, no. I said, don't tell me. You took your Dachshund it's not even a full hot dog, right? It's a
Yeah, the
miniature
mini
Dachshund.
one, they're tiny.
It's a cocktail wiener. I said, so you took your little appetizer dog and you let your little appetizer dog run out in the backyard all by itself at night. And that's
God.
I looked outside, I let him out in the backyard, and I looked outside, and one of those things was flying off with it. I'm like,
oh no.
Now, of course, I didn't call it a cocktail wiener or an hors d'oeuvre, to her face, but that's what I was thinking in my mind. I was like, oh,
To
no.
be fair, I can see where, I'd be devastated if that happened to my dog.
Well, sure. I mean, would be too. But, she lived in a forested area. She knew there were a lot of owls and things around because she would hear them all the time. And she let her pets out without going outside with them. Instead of walking them or at least hanging out in the backyard while they were out there, she would just let them out in the yard and let them run and play. And so, unfortunately, the owl looks, and there is, I would have been devastated too, which is why our cats are not outside cats.
Yeah.
And all of that kind of stuff. We just don't do that because there's too many things that can happen to them outside. But anyway, going back to the story with working with these birds and interacting with people on this whole thing, there was a woman who, part of the program was, you can donate into the program and you can get the opportunity to hold one of the birds. So we would put a glove on you and let you hold and take a picture with various types of birds. Understanding that these were injured birds, they're still wild and all this other stuff. They're not meant to be pets, but you can get to learn about them. So this woman was standing way, way back from our birds, but she let her son come up. And I'm talking to her like at a distance, going, well, come on over. And she's like, oh, no. I'm terrified of birds. Like, oh, really? So I picked up a kestrel, which is a small falcon. They're only about, a few inches tall. And I'm holding the kestrel on my gloved hand, and I'm walking closer to her, and I'm talking to her about birds and why we shouldn't fear them and all this other stuff. And I'm not really trying to force her into anything, but I wanted her to feel that her son was safe with the bird because she was so nervous. And while we're talking, she's coming closer, I'm coming closer to her. And next thing you know, we're standing right next to each other, and the bird is between us, only inches away from her. And she looks at me and she goes, I've never been this close to a bird in my entire life. And I looked at her and I said, would you like to hold him? She's like, oh, I don't know if I can do that. I said, let me slip a glove on you and try. And I turned the bird over to her. And she's looking, and her little boy comes over, and tears are in his eyes. She goes, Mommy, you're holding a bird. And tears start forming in her eyes. And she goes, this is so wonderful. I've never been this close to a bird in my entire life. Thank you for helping me overcome my fear.
That's amazing.
And that was one of those moments that I said, this is why I'm here. This is exactly why I'm here. Because I help somebody achieve and overcome something else. So the things I've learned from my experience of having the little zoo and just learning so much about animals and their interaction with people and all the things that we can learn from that, I try to apply those lessons in my everyday life.
Well, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story.
Well, thank you so much for having me and giving me the opportunity to tell it. One of the things that I tell the story about being the mighty mosquito wrestler a lot. I tell stories about my time in the Navy a lot, and other fun stories from my life. But I haven't really talked about the zoo and all I learned from it as a kid. I don't get to do that very often. And when we first communicated, that one of the things that came to mind was, I think I'll tell that story. I think I'd like to share that finally.
Yeah. Would you like to remind everyone where to find you on the internet?
Absolutely. My website is www.johnverrico.com. I'm on all the social media. On Facebook, I'm on John Verrico Speaks, and Jay Verrico on Twitter, and I'm on LinkedIn and Instagram, not quite on TikTok. I've got to get back to doing my disco moves, and then maybe we'll get back to there again.
I'll have all your links down below in the description on YouTube and in the show notes on the audio platform. Thanks again for coming on and sharing your story. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for watching and or listening. If you chose to watch on YouTube, please subscribe, give the video a like. It helps us out. And if you choose to listen on the audio platforms, if you could give the podcast a rating, that really helps us out in the old podcast rankings. Thank you again, John, for joining, and I shall see you next week.
Thank you so much, Claire. Bye-bye.
This podcast was brought to you by The Shift. For more like this, check out theshift.ie.